All right, I'm going to call, it's 5:30, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. We're going to start out with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
So we are going to go for approval of the minutes from the November meeting of 2022. Those are the minutes that we had some concerns about. And so we asked that they work on them again, and which they did, and they are in the packet for approval for this month. So okay, everybody had a chance to take a look at those.
Page 6. Just down where it says 6:46, the time, 6:46. That needs a little rewording. Comments that at the view from the bridge is less important.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
That just needs a little rewording.
Comments
You talk, maybe just have it removed, is that
the view, yeah, it should come out.
the view from the bridge is less important than the view?
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably that would do.
Take the it out.
Yeah,
Mhm. And then on page 7 at the top, needed a little bit of help too. 6, where it says 6, the time is 6:58. I was respectfully disagree. He probably
Would.
said, would respectfully disagree. Those are just little verbal language corrections. I know.
And didn't Cheryl find something on 5?
Yeah.
5.
Sam Frank's name spelled wrong in 3 places.
Oh,
It's not on the rest of it. She's got it as Franks, Franks, but I think it's what you said. I found 2 and she had the third one, so 3 of them there. I didn't think it was plural. What?
I just didn't see where it was, but they'll correct it.
Okay, is there anything else? Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the November minutes.
You want a second?
I second.
Okay.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And so we'll move on to the minutes from the December meeting, December 6th. This were a little shorter than the other.
That was the meeting.
I haven't seen anything.
I know, I didn't see anything, so.
Let me make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the December.
Yep, you make a motion.
And I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So now we will move on to agenda item A, C3 text amendment. Applicant has requested to open and continue the item until February. So there's nothing in your packet from agenda item A. So we have a motion to open and continue that. Okay.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So we'll move on to agenda item B, 155.9.1.5 off-street parking text amendment. And Tony, you want to come up?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the planning board. This text amendment is for the all-street parking requirements in the C3 district. We did receive this application on December the 2nd, 2022. The text amendment application is to amend ordinance chapter 155.915. The petitioner is Atlantic Marine Incorporated, and they have appointed Samuel Frank to serve as authorized agent. He's going to speak on behalf of the text amendment for this application. To give you some background on this ordinance, the current ordinance parking requirements for a marina boat located in the C3 commercial district is one parking space for each two slips in the marina, plus one parking space for each four dry storage spaces. The proposed text amendment reads as follows. 155.915 would be amended by one parking space for each two slips, that stays the same in the marina, plus one parking space for each six dry storage spaces. This is what's changing from 4 to 6 there. The C3 district is typically in the Marina district. That's the main area. We do have a site on Salisbury Street, C-Path parking lot, and then the landing. So that's the C3 commercial districts. We did send this out to department heads for review. The police department had no comments. Fire department had no. They responded back, no concerns for the proposed change. Public Works with no comments. This statement, the Campbell Land Use Plan text amendment, is consistent with the town's Campbell Land Use Plan. The meeting was advertised in the Star News for a January 10th meeting on December the 28th in the Star News. Planning staff recommends that the planning board consider the text amendment to chapter 155.915 all street parking requirements for the land use and the statement of consistency. We have that as a packet, and we just went out today and took some pictures of the marina area. This is Atlantic Marine site here. These are dry dock storage units here in this enclosure, and then there's some right there, and you'll see some more in that same area. But Neil had some questions today, and I think Sam tried to answer some of those, and I have some answers to Neil's questions. If you got any questions for me, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Tony, could you just go back to your first picture? I think it was the first. Yeah, that one. So that's current,
Yes.
but you guys weren't in a helicopter. I mean, this is
No.
below the source. So, does that reflect what's there now?
That reflects as of today.
Those aerials are from 2020, 2022, January, February is when you had our county updates there, aerials for GIS.
So
That's pretty current.
But it doesn't represent what might be out there right now, as far as racks were.
Well, I was out there today and took pictures, and that pretty much is what's there.
There's some racks in the front. This picture was taken today, and this is a picture here that's taken today of some of those racks out there, Neil.
Okay,
Yeah, here.
gotcha, yeah, okay.
Okay, so that's reflected as of today. What we did find is Atlantic Marine has dry stack. We believe that Marine Max has dry stack. That's the only two that we're aware of.
Thanks.
They're the only two that have dry
That
stacks.
I'm aware of, yes.
What are the only two? Say that again.
Marine Max
Mhm.
and Atlantic Marine, those two are the only two that we're aware of that has the rack.
How would you not be aware of it, though? You would be, would you?
I mean, you would see them typically like
Right.
this, and most of the time in this area, that's what you see, the double stack like that.
So that parking lot there, that's for the people that have dry storage or their boats are being put in out of dry storage,
Yeah.
dropped in, and they come and park there.
Yes, and then I think when Sam or David can get up and explain
Okay.
some of those different parking arrangements they have there.
And does Atlantic own these lots, or are these subleased or something?
They'll have to answer that. I think they do lease one and own some, so I think they would be the best as far as ownership for those
Okay.
lots.
And if you go back a couple of years, those racks weren't there, so what is the process for additional racks?
I think the thing is those racks have come and gone at different areas, different times. I think there's times when they haven't been there and they have been there, but basically there shouldn't be any more new dry stack storage. I don't know when those were approved, but it's some point in time in the last 20 years, the racks have probably come and gone. at some point in time.
But you use the word approved, so it requires approval to put racks in those spots.
It should take some type of approval. Maybe they had approval, 20, 25 years ago with some certain other permits.
Tony, didn't we, and correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we just approve for Atlantic Marine like last year or 2 years ago to have more dry storage?
I think we did
Yeah.
something, and then we reduced the parking for wet slips also. Maybe
Okay.
for one
Yeah.
of the marinas.
Yeah, you were on the
Daniel,
board.
you were on the board.
You
We
were
did
on the
something.
board.
It was one of those nights where, they waited till the end. I mean, they had to wait through all this stuff and then they came up. Do you remember that? It was one of those three.
No,
meetings.
I'd like to go back and see the minutes from
Yeah.
to understand what the context was.
No, you were here.
Mhm.
So,
Do you remember, Robert?
Yes, I believe we reduced the parking there due to the special use permit application for the floating restaurant. To accommodate the parking for the restaurant that would be moved in there. So it was reduced at that time.
Yeah, but we actually had Atlantic Marine. That's not what,
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, that's not-
We'll have to look at
he can probably tell us when he comes forward
I
what
thought it was
he.
something to do with a dock, a finger dock or
Hmm.
something. No.
So anyway, he can tell us, right?
Sorry.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
No,
We
we're-
did do that, but yeah.
Mhm.
So Tony, from the way you explained it though, I get the feeling that the town doesn't know what's been approved as far as stacks and slips. So here we are, embarking on a change, but we don't even know what the current situation is and what's the approved situation versus what might be the actual situation. And if this is, so to speak, directed at converting parking spaces into stacks, I mean, I can see that's where this math is potentially taking it. But we don't have a handle on that. It just seems like there's a problem.
Yeah, I'm not up to date on conditional use permits. I think one of these projects had one 20+ years ago. But I don't know what that reads, or like I say, the applicant may have some numbers on
Okay.
that. No.
And just to clarify, you mentioned CPAP and the Salisbury Marina. They would be affected by.
Well, no, it's zone C3, but there's no dry stack there that I'm aware of, so.
And they would have to get approval for. a
Yeah,
dry stack. Yeah,
that wouldn't be, since it's not there, no dry stack is there, they couldn't do it. No.
They would have to apply for it.
They'd have to apply for it and change some ordinances and things like that.
We'd have to change the land use plan. Our land use plan specifically says that we don't allow dry stacks anymore.
No new dry stacks.
So how does that deal with increasing dry stacks in the space? It automatically rules it out.
Well, you're not supposed to increase it. I don't know if they've increased it or not. I think they have some numbers that was approved 25 years ago or plus for their business.
So what were the other places? Did you say the
landing.
landing, CPAP, Salisbury, and that's it?
I don't think you said landing, did you?
Yeah, the landing is C3, but
Oh, yeah.
they're not.
Okay, those are all C3,
Instead of the marina ones. Yeah.
but they have to get right now. Okay.
There's just two. Atlantic and
Marina.
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 And they're side by side,
Right.
pretty much. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for Tony? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Mhm.
Tony.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members. My name is Sam Brandt. I represent the applicant, Atlantic Marine. Ahead of the meeting, Robert was kind enough to hand you the sheet that has the proposed change to the text. I'm gonna reference that a couple of times while I'm talking, and therefore I want to draw your attention to it. Can you hear me all right if I don't hold the microphone?
Mhm.
Are you recording me all right?
Robert should be, he's in his office.
Okay. Thank you. It's certainly easier for me to speak that way. There's too much empty asphalt in the marina district. It's unattractive. It's not particularly environmentally friendly. It's not by any stretch the highest and best use of that land for the people that own that land, nor is it the best solution for the town. Town recognized that and took a step to help correct it in 2020 by reducing the required parking ratio for wet slips they cut it in half. Used to require 1 space per slip, now 1 space per every 2 slips. But for some reason, when that was addressed in 2020, we didn't catch the corollary, the analogous requirement for dry slips, and probably should have. The practical reality for this applicant and this operator is that the parking spaces that they maintain already sit empty. The number of boats that get pulled down on a typical peak weekend day is 14 or 15. And even on an extreme peak weekend day, the number of boats relative to the number of slips available that are pulled down is nowhere close to that 1-to-4 ratio that's contemplated in the code now. Therefore, we thought we'd seize this opportunity here in the off season to make what feels like a cleanup and appropriate correction to the code. By making this change, you don't do anything to any existing zoning approval. By making this change to the code, what you do is 2 things. One, you make the appropriate change to parking requirements, parking ratios for dry slips in a similar fashion to the way that you handled them for wet slips. And 2, should an owner who incorporates a dry stack use want to come before the town in the future to propose a plan, they can propose a plan that's based on a parking ratio that makes sense. Again, nothing about changing the parking ratio tonight changes any of the existing conditional zoning applicable to either of the dry stack facilities that you're aware of. We also don't know any other than Marine Max and Atlantic Marine. That's what we're talking about. There are, of course, some other wet slip marina facilities throughout the town, but with regard to the dry stacks, it's just these 2. So you can see the change is pretty simple. We're changing 1 word from 4 to 6. To cut the parking requirement in half would have been to change that from 4 to 8, which is what we did with the wet slips. We went from 1 to 1 to 1 to 2. In this case, we proposed 1 to 6 as a sort of a half step in that direction. That number is based on what we both think is reasonable and also a realistic number to represent the maximum ratio of boats that would be pulled out of a dry stack on any given peak day, based on Atlantic Marine's experience. That is about all there is that I want to say about that. My clients here, David Floyd, Will Floyd, and Jordan Davis are all here, representatives of Atlantic Marine. As y'all well know, Atlantic Marine's been a corporate citizen of the town for decades, and an important one, significant component of the character of our town, and a significant contributor to what gets done in this town. And therefore you may have some business operation questions that relate directly to our client, and they're here and eager and interested to answer those questions if you do have.
Anybody have any questions for Sam?
Yeah,
Well, I could ask you, this is pretty simple and pretty straightforward. How many dry slips are there?
So it varies. There's not the same number of slips. There's not the same number of parking spaces from month to month. It varies based on demand and based on the size of the boats. I can invite my client to give you a.
I was just wanting to know physically how many dry slips there are.
Yeah, and I don't
You
know.
don't know?
I don't know the answer to the question, other than I know that it changes when they adapt based on the size of boats and the number of boats in any given quarter of the season that they need to store. They adapt the size of those slips to accommodate the same. But let me invite my client to answer your question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And if you'll just state your name.
So David Floyd, I think most everybody knows me. There's a ton of history that goes back to that property. We would be here late talking about all the things that's happened there. We bought the property, built the building in 1973, and there was not a CUP, and CUP was buy a permit to build a building. because it was a dirt road. Over the corporate years of running there, we eventually bought and built the Marine Max property, if you remember that. That would have gone back somewhere around 87, 88. And at that time, we did have to have a CUP, and Tony was aware of that. There's not a lot of records going back. I have some that I can share at the adequate time, but we're really here looking at parking ratio. We're not asking to grow the marina. We're not asking to put another 100 slips over there. We have room to do about whatever we want to do at the current time. It's just Wright's Marina and our parking lot and Blue Water are all a big old black asphalt field that it rains on and it runs off in the ocean. There it is. So we're having to keep all those parking spaces you see right there available to park daily in case somebody comes up and get the kind of numbers that the ratio calls for. And I'm gonna go back further, say when we got this dry storage built in 74, right up to the next time, that ratio came down, was involved with the town adopting that. We picked that up from a Florida town that had a dry storage, and that ratio came from that. It was no study, it was anything, it was just drug in. Hey, this seems to fit the frame. It's just too much. We have, Jordan, we have now a computer system that meters every time you put your boat in the water, what time it comes in and what time it goes out, and we can tell any day how many people are there. We do have to have a person there on the weekend, and that's to keep people from parking their 3 cars and taking 1 car over to the beach to park out on the beach. So we've had to maintain it from that. But as far as us, the rock lot that looks, you saw the boat stuff belongs to Gene Long. We lease it from him, and we always have. And it's just overflow. If we needed more parking or needed to park a boat on a trailer and that kind of thing, well, that's what we use it for. But I don't have any plans. I don't have anything sold. It's just when that first agenda change happened with the Rice Marina thing, finally somebody mentioned it and saw this as an issue. Let's not wait too long. Let's just bring it from the board and see if we can get ours corrected as well. I'll answer any questions. The one question you asked me specifically, you asked me today how many boats we have there. We have right at 200.
I think the question was not boats, but places for boats.
Well, it's a 25-foot I-beam that's 4 high. And if you bring me in 74, you had an 18-foot boat, I could have put about 225 boats in that building. Nobody at Rachel Beach has an 18-foot boat anymore. They all have 22s, 23s, and 24s. So we used to put 12 boats. We're now putting 4 boats in that spot. So we have got temporary racking systems like you see, the permanent structure that doesn't require us to have a CUP. I can pick them up, I can move them, I can do whatever I want to do with them. And the original CUP calls for, there's 3 lots there. The 2 lots are for parking. The 3rd lot is for boat display. Now, what you can reach back and find those, you'll find that information there. But I have no reason to tell anything different than the truth. We just think that the parking is ridiculous to have it. The 2 prior things I think y'all talked about, I came for 2 things. You did extend my pier headline out because they did a new survey and our dock was inside of the pier, is in there, so we fixed it. The other one was we tore down our offices and our service department, and we moved 18 employees off the beach over to where we're paying taxes for the new 235 Eastwood Road, which is working great. It's taking all that traffic off that corner. Our employees, the wear and tear, the grease, the oil, everything that goes along with the marina. We essentially have a yacht club, have wealthy customers that come down and have bigger boats. And they generally get their boat on Friday and they take it to their house and they put it in their house all weekend and they bring it back Monday. So we have a huge parking lot that's a waste that should Will, my son, here tonight, decide 10 years from now that he wants to redo the marina, redo the dock, redo the bulk, and do those kind of things, he'll have to come in front of you guys. Anything we do to improve that property is going to require a permit, which is going to require a new CUP. We have just not had to do that since the Marine Max thing. We kind of went from big to small and then we kind of grew again. So that's where we are today. So what we're asking for is just cleaning up the parking. It's just not right the way it is. We have no intentions of putting another building up there today, tomorrow, or anytime that I'm have any obligation to at all. We're not involved with Sam and the Reddix thing up there, not any of those kind of things. It's just cleaning up the parking lot. We feel like we have a lot of wasted space. We could have
What are you gonna do with the wasted space?
That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
That was my
We can
question.
maneuver our forklift easier. We cannot back into a car that's about this far behind us. You know, it's just not. It's just overkill is what we're trying to do, trying to straighten that out.
But it's still gonna be there, right?
Oh, yeah, we're not building anything. I can't unless I come to him.
Right, right. But I mean, but.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think I'm understanding, Emma. That it's still gonna look like that, no matter what we say tonight, still gonna look like that, right?
The only thing we'll do is be setting up a standard from this point on that if anything comes forward in front of you, that option is there, you're within the guidelines to reduce the parking. You're correct, but is it gonna change?
Like if
anything?
you wanted to put more dry storage there, could you do that? On that lot?
I could put temporary dry storage on, Gene Long's property next door, as long as it wasn't a permanent structure. I sure could. I could go into Marine Max's or, Rachel Beach Marinas and stick a rack there and drive a forklift. It's C3 is commercial zone. I can do it. We've been through that, driving the forklift on the road. But none of that has anything to do with this. It's not the reason we're here, but, it's been a lot of years, 47 years today, or the last month, where we have been over there, haven't bothered anybody, haven't done anything. We're just trying to collect this parking issue.
There were two comments made, one by you and one by Sam.
Oh.
Sam used the term, higher and better use, I think it was. Highest and best use. And then you also referenced that it's just an ugly asphalt parking lot and, you know, it could be better. So it kind of begs the question, well, if all we do is change this parking,
I'll be in
nothing
front-
else has changed.
I'll be in front of you with a new plan when that time comes, but it is not in this near future. It's just building's 47 years old, the bulkhead's 47 years old. At some point, we're gonna have to come to the town and say, we want to put, and you're gonna make me put flower beds, you're gonna make me put street turning corners, you're gonna make me put handicap parking. And I'm
Bike
glad,
rack.
I'm glad to do all that, but it's just gonna eat up more valuable space. And that is, just equitable to let me get to where I need to be.
The parking ratio as it sits today prevents that conversation from even starting. The excess parking that's required today gets in the way of any sort of future development plan. There is no specific future plan. There's no concept for us to show you. There's no plan on the table. But we recognize that in order for any higher and better use of that land to be proposed to the town in the future, we first got to clear this hurdle of getting rid of the requirement to keep a bunch of empty asphalt on the land.
So what I hear is two things. One is that, for you to significantly think forward, you need to have the basis to be able to think forward, which is you have to see that there's a way to have room to do something different. The other thing is you said that you have this computer system and you have valid data that says this is what the demand has been. Is that a year's worth of data or 2 years or?
Jordan, what'd you break?
Have a year.
That just this past year,
Okay.
which I don't know if it could be with the COVID, could be any higher use on boats than what it has been for the last 2 years.
Gotcha.
Again, I wish I could say I was sitting here wanting to expand things and spend money and make it look bigger and make it bigger but that's not where it's the stage of my life I'm in, but I just know that this is inconsistent with what should be there. Period. Could we add more racks? Could we do that? I don't want another job. I got plenty of work to do, but it just doesn't give any flexibility to do anything currently, only because it's word's not inadequate. There's another word for it. It's just too much. It sets it.
I understand the variability that you described with being able to adjust your racks to accommodate different size boats. But what do you feel is the capacity? I guess because of variable size of the boat's hard to say, but what are you held to by the town as far as what you're able to store?
Parking, access to space and setbacks, the same thing you would be building a
I'm
house.
talking about boats because that's really what the driver is for the demand for parking. So
Probably what am I held by? I guess Tony holds me accountable more than anything else, but there's nothing, because of the extent of length that we've been there, there's nothing in writing that the town can hold me to unless I expand my use. If he comes by and see I'm getting taller, wider, bigger. I should be able to use the property that I own, I should be able to do it within the setbacks of what I've got. I should be able to put what I want in that area, as long as I'm not expanding it. If I'm expanding it, I gotta come over here and I realize that we purposely have not done that. We've stayed in that same kind of number. Now, when we did the Marine Max building, yes, there was conditional use that stated how many wet slips, and that's a long story. I'm glad to get into how that went further down the road. Now Marine Max has their own CUP, and I don't.
So it's complicated, the history
But
related.
again, it
to-
really doesn't have it does to you, and I'm not downplaying what you're saying. I know what you're saying. I get the feeling anything I'm going to explain and make things bigger. That's not today what I have in mind, and that's not why I'm here. We decided it was okay to do it with the wet slips because it made sense. Why is that ratio not comparable in the same sentence with the dry storage? It is. It just is.
And the dry storage numbers move, so the parking numbers would move. And really, it's
If I
up to
was-
you to make your
If I was
customers
here,
happy.
fussing about parking and I don't have enough. In Florida, they pick your car up and they set your car in your rack while you're on the boat. That gets past it. And if you go down to Swansboro, Sneaks Ferry, that kind of stuff, they don't put any boats in the bottom rack because that's where the cars, all employees park. I could go over there, Tony's gonna walk over there with a pad and say, show me X number of parking places. I could make 25% more what we have now if I wanted to, but again, that didn't have anything to do with the conversation tonight, other than we just want to get in line with, it was determined that everybody's not going to use their wet slip every night. So let's just double that, let's just cut it in half. Now we're trying to say, well, no, there's not going to be any, they're not going to clean out the building by 25% in one day. There's no way. And y'all know, anybody that lives here and has storage with me, I'm sure ain't going out on the holiday weekend. They're gonna leave the boat in the rack.
Correct.
So, I don't have a parking problem. I just have a problem with this ordinance and it needs to be corrected. And it doesn't affect anything but me in the future, or my son in the future, or anything that we would like to do to improve it. It gives us the basis to start the improvement process or study what we could do to make it better. Again, it would have to come in front of you and you say, no, that's too big, that's too wild, that's too long, that's too deep.
And the age of it makes it feasible that you don't have to do this.
It's someday, but I'm gonna keep lipsticking it as long as I can, sure.
Is the question that didn't have a very clear answer for me was, although you gave some comments to it, can you expand? And you said you can put up additional racks of some qualifier like temporary or whatever that means, which says that you can, the demand for, or the requirement for parking is this elastic thing. And how does the town ever come to grips with what you're committed to and what you have to demonstrate you have as parking?
When the use changes, then they'll put, the CUP would come into play, I'd have to get permission, but currently, I'm not sure that.
You can also look at the history of conduct. This isn't a new proposal from a new unknown quantity. You have a business operator who's been there for over 40 years. And so let's ask staff, how many problems have we had as a town with overflow parking coming from this business operation causing issues on the streets? The comments that were solicited from each of the department heads demonstrate that there have been none. The interest of the business operator in providing adequate parking is the same as the town's. Those slips are not inexpensive to rent for a year. If we don't provide adequate parking, people won't pay the rent. That's a given. And so we have no interest in squeezing the actual parking used for this operation in a way that disrupts the customer's availability to it. That's not what any of this is about. This is about bringing the ratio for the dry slip requirement in line with the ratio that we changed for the wet slip requirement for the good of the entire town.
Sam, remind me when it was changed for the wet slips.
2020.
2020, so not that long ago.
Yeah.
And that was changed for Wrightsville Beach.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
Yes, it appears that
It
way.
wasn't for Atlantic, it was for
Right,
discussion.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Tony, has there been any negative fallout from that, to your knowledge?
Yeah.
For that reduction in the parking?
I'll go one step further, we're the last time we had to come count parking lots.
I can tell you, CPATH, what we did was when we got the reduction in required number of spaces, is that we just made fewer, wider spaces, because that's what the membership wanted, was wider spaces to be able to get their trucks, big vehicles in and out, and all their gear in and out. And so it actually, we just.
You mean
that was
parking
kind of-
spaces?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that was kind of the benefit
yeah.
for
Yeah.
the marina. CPAP when the wet slips changed, it just allowed us to do fewer, bigger spaces.
Cause there's always a lot of parks there open, aren't there?
Oh, yeah.
This might be my dumb night, and I'm just not getting it. But it seems to me that I haven't heard a clear answer as to what's the process you have to go through to expand the dry stack storage for your business.
I would have to call and get a building permit, and I'd have to come over to Tony and say, I'm gonna put up a permanent structure, and he's gonna hand me a CUP application.
But you used earlier the term temporary, not a permanent, and if it's temporary, I guess what you were saying, if I heard you correctly, is you can just do that.
Let me answer another way. If you said I need 200 parking places over there, I could back 200 boats over there on trailers and put them in the parking place, and nobody could do anything. It's commercial property in the Marina District. Trying to be polite, don't take me the wrong way, but
No,
I don't.
my interest here are, how does this going forward? How does this apply? And how can it go sideways?
So when.
And I don't have the history that you're stating, where Sam is stating. So I can't depend upon that. I don't have that knowledge, but the questions I've asked haven't had real clear answers. And in fact, they've had some answers that say, well, I can do this, and I don't really need to be involved in the town. So you're asking us to essentially enable you to expand your business and cutting back parking requirements in a town that is nothing but parking challenges.
I'm not asking you to expand the use of the business, I'm just asking you to consider the parking.
But what you're saying is you can expand your business. There's nothing that stops you from doing that. Except that there's not more waterfront for you to build out or something that dry stack was. So I'm not trying to be negative.
Well,
I'm just trying to understand.
I feel like you're asking me, am I gonna expand, am I gonna put more slips, am I gonna do more of that? I have no plans for that, there's nothing in anywhere down the road, thought process or anything of doing that. It is just, it happened. For wet slips, it made sense, dry storage makes the same sense, I'm here for doing this, I get your concern, I do it, but then you also, I look at the people that I've known and been around all my life. They know what we've accomplished over there, we know what we've done, we've been honest, straight people, we have. The street in front of here is named after my dad, who was mayor here. Why would I wanna burn that bridge? I'm no interest in that. But if I want to beautify that parking lot, I ain't doing any daggone thing about it.
And let me finish answering Mr. Briggy's question, that where the rubber meets the road is someday someone may propose a change to the use on that property. When they do, they're gonna have to file a CUP application. That issue is gonna be in front of you. One of the things that the planning staff is going to look at as they evaluate whether that fits within the code or not, is whether or not adequate parking is provided. We're trying to address that concern today because it's the right thing to do, unrelated to any future application. Recognizing that it also makes it possible for some future change in use of the land.
But I would also say that the person that comes up here, other than the Floyd's, asking for something that's gonna be wanting to put a restaurant or a hotel or something that's more valuable to that land than landing Marina dry storage, because it makes our family a good living, it always has, but if you had to buy our property and produce enough money to do it, ain't no way in the world.
I think one of the concerns, I think, speaking for myself, and I think and Sam, you should know this, that, and I know you know this. One of the biggest things that comes, things that have been coming to us a lot lately and parking has been a big part of it.
Sure.
And everything, and when I say everything, I think I'm being pretty accurate, has been a building or an apartment or an Airbnb or there's been something about short-term rentals and parking has been an issue.
I get it.
And so I think that is some concern.
But
Fair
he
enough.
is not an apartment complex or a
I
condominium.
understand that.
restaurant.
But
He's the-
and I totally, and that's where I'm leaning, and but what I'm saying is I think, and I'm speaking for myself, but I think I'm speaking for others, I'd say that for sure, but that is a concern for us, that is this getting that out of the way? Because in 10 years, you may want to put up a 20 unit or a 10 unit or whatever. And that's, because that's always an issue with everything that comes to us is parking. If that's out of the way,
Right, but we can't think about, we're here to talk about boat slips and a marina. So we're not here to talk about the potential
what
of a
could-
hotel
what-
being built there someday. We're talking about parking.
It refers to dock
For-
right,
Yeah, to drive,
Yeah.
not only to marinas in the marina district, but to dry dock storage. And all due respect, I'm not trying to be, but I think we need to stay focused on that and
well,
not.
he was the one that brought up mentioned hotel or somebody could
I'm
be.
saying,
restaurant.
it's like changed it.
But it-
Yeah,
But since that got said out loud, I just
Yeah.
wanted to.
no, I totally,
I changed it, what you're changing it, what they want us to do tonight is dry storage.
right,
That's all it's
Make
used
it
for right now.
wet, saying
And
it's
you have
wet.
to start all over again if you're gonna
right.
put a.
So the discrete solution that we suggested to you is that we believe one parking space per 6 dry slips is adequate. And we're asking for your thoughts about that. And
Right.
Ms. Brunas, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
That is the extent,
Yeah.
beginning and end of the
And he'd
question.
have to do something else if he wanted to start all over again. He wants to put something else there.
Yes, ma'am.
Does anyone else have any questions about this or comments?
The only
See?
thing I can-
Somebody's like,
yeah,
what's that?
the only thing I can envision, and it's something that the town doesn't control. You know, it's his property. Is that if he doesn't need but so many places and he has a few extra parking spaces, you know, he could allow people to park, like you said, park their boat there. You know, just pull it up with on the trailer and park the boat there.
Would it something bad for that?
And that would be allowable with what we're
This is
saying about
private.
tonight.
It's his property.
Allowable now.
It's his
Mhm.
property, that's what I'm saying,
Right.
that's the only thing that would be different, is that he could use his parking spaces for other things, such as maybe
I'm
docking.
just gonna have room in
That's on the trailer, yes,
I don't
yes,
have.
But he could do that now.
Yeah,
right, if
And
he had
reduce
extra
the number,
spaces.
if you reduce the number of spaces, the likelihood of
Right.
trailer and boats in the parking lot would decline.
Mhm.
Because you need to keep those spaces
Yeah.
for clients, customers,
For your-
members.
For your customers and
Right.
members, exactly.
Mhm.
The likelihood of something ugly being there is probably less with lesser spaces.
Mhm.
That's a good point also, that the more effective this business operates, the less pressure there is on the public resource that is in the parking affiliated with the.
Right,
Mhm.
Ready?
Does anyone have any questions? Any, Susan got?
I don't have any.
Leanne's?
Mhm.
Thank you.
I did have one observation, I'm trying to find the reference here, it's, on the last page. We're talking about the, with one sheet, like about, yeah, proposed text amendments in accordance, can be used for that. The town shall encourage the state wildlife officials to find ways to increase accessibility to the state wildlife boat ramp and reduce problems associated with congestion and parking problems. That seems diametrically opposed to what we're talking about. And I just didn't want to let that slip. I mean, we're not dealing with the boat ramp, we're not dealing with wildlife.
In there, do you?
Yeah, the reason why, sometimes when you look at the Campbell land use plan, it's difficult to sometimes find things that support it. I thought this did support it in some ways, so that's why I included this in there. There were some other ones I could have included, but it didn't say anything about boats or anything like that, so that's why I included this in here. But
In other words, only did it.
I didn't.
Because we wanted.
Didn't want to misinterpret that.
Okay. So so we'll close that portion of the text amendment and we can have discussion amongst ourselves and I would like to just kind of start out by saying that I feel like that in keeping focus on the Marina District, the C3 district and marinas and dry storage, which is what we're referring to, and parking associated with dry storage, not anything else. And with the numbers that Mr. Floyd gave us, and I will certainly say I've been over there during busy times of day, you know, busy weekends going to Mott's Channel, and there's plenty of open parking spaces over there. Just from my own personal experience. But with his numbers, I don't have an issue at all in reducing the number, you know, or increase from 4 to 6. So I think that if there's going to be a problem with parking with Mr. Floyd's business, it's going to be on Mr. Floyd and having to deal with his customers. And if they're in need of overflow parking, they can park in our parking spots and pay. And the town makes money, so. But anyway, that's my 2 cents. And if anybody else has anything they'd like to say
I
for or
would
against.
second that, and just based on my experience at CPAC. And being able to have the flexibility to create wider wider parking spaces just makes it much easier to navigate both for patrons. And I'm assuming we don't have to deal with forklifts and that type of stuff at CPAC, but I'm assuming for David's operation, it would be probably a desirable thing to have fewer larger spaces like we did at CPAC. And again, that's an assumption on my part, but I don't have a problem with it. It's been a good experience at CPAC.
I think it's great that they have the database that I believe validates what their request is for the ratio. The thing that just sticks with me is we're faced with another change to a text. And where's the enforceability? Because a lot of times that's what we anguish about. How do you enforce this? So what were they enforcing? Well, yeah, it'll be driven by the business result. They have, you know, angry clients that can't park. So that's one good side. I think the most important thing here, though, is that what will trigger something is if they come forward and they want to make some changes. And that will trigger a rediscussion of, you know, that we created a problem by this. So just have to wait for that time in my mind.
We're very protective of the parking and the parking ordinances. And I understand that, but we need to stay focused on the marina area.
Yeah.
And we're going to do that.
support it.
I agree with you. I do. But I see what Neil is saying as well, but it is about the dry storage and you know, I don't have a problem with it.
So
Anything
Can
else?
I make a
Ian?
motion?
you can make a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the text amendment.
Anyway.
155915.
Yeah, 1559.1.5, the off-street parking text amendment to move it from one parking spot for 4 to one parking spot for 2.
Yeah, dry space.
Okay.
Dry spaces.
Dry spaces. I don't have it in front of me.
Neil second.
Well, she's got
That would,
go for each 6 dry storage spaces as opposed to 4.
okay. Yes.
Yeah, just read that on
So
page
one
13.
parking space for each 2 slips in the marina plus 1 parking space for each 6 dry storage.
Neil second.
I second.
You second?
I second the second time. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I heard Leanne say you seconded, but I didn't hear you, so my apologies. Yeah. All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye. So I believe that's, anyone opposed? I think everybody said it.
Did
Okay.
you get that, Robert?
Yes, ma'am, I got it.
Looks light out. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Oh,
Good night.
Okay, so now we're moving on to agenda item C. 92.01, 92.29, A.3, and 155.7.15 business at the beach and ocean related business activities text amendment. And so we'll ask Tony to come forward.
Madam Chair, members of the planning board. This is a zoning text amendment 155.715 for ocean related business activities. Staff did receive on November the 1st, a text amendment application from the Islander for a text amendment to 155.715. The petitioner has requested that chapter 155.715E ocean related business be amended to read as to occupants of units at condominiums with more than 10 units. So when staff got this application, and y'all may have seen this, we've seen it one or two times before. We sent this to the department heads in November, so we had time for staff to look at it, and we felt like there was some other needed changes from the comments from the staff. So if you look at it, we had the ocean related business activities located in two sections of our ordinance. So we struck out the beachfront, we changed some housekeeping as far as from January 1st to December 31st on page 26. On page 27, you see E, and then you see F. This is the Islanders changes. The F, the chairs and umbrellas may be delivered and set up on beach at the condominium developments with more than 10 units, provided that. And then staff added these other ones here. Number one, number two, they only can be set up for customers that have requested the service, that are residing in the condominium development. Number three, chairs and umbrellas cannot be set on the beach prior to 7 a.m. and must be removed by 8 p.m. each day. Chairs and umbrellas shall be used by the condominium property to drop off and retrieve chairs and umbrellas, and then no chairs and umbrellas can be set up in the emergency lane. And you see on page 27, we had to delete, and this was staff 92.29 because we had it in two different sections. That's being deleted. On page 28, you see we deleted definitions and changed the definition here. So the definition change was umbrellas for hotels. We added private clubs located immediately adjacent to beachfront and beachfront condominium developments with more than 10 units. And we sent it back out to all the department heads, and you see the emails, the different comments from Katie, police, fire, park ranger, and then ocean rescue there. And I think you have an email from Nancy Fahey also this afternoon. I think she's here tonight for any comments. But this is consistent with the town's plan use consistency policy 5.4. Public notice, we did advertise for this meeting for tonight. Staff recommends the planning board consider the text amendment along with a statement of consistency. And I tried to look at the last one that was presented to us. And there was quite a few changes that the staff made. If you remember last time, there was talk about tents and things like that. That's no longer in there. And then there was things about beach games. We removed all of those things. They can't go into the street ends, block emergency lanes and things like that. So we did go back and make some changes to it. To this ordinance to try to dress it down some. And now it's limited now just to condominiums with 10 or more. So, so the Islander is 10 or more. If you have any questions for me, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
How many of those are there? The
Well,
Islander,
I think Station 1 would be one.
Station 1,
The Islander, Shell Island has their own, they're a little bit different. They have some private property out there than most beaches. Their private property goes out further, so, than most.
And Dunes Ridge,
Do what?
Dunes Ridge.
Dune Ridge,
New Ridge probably could, yeah.
and
Okay.
what's the other one?
From the
Side.
south, there are two.
From west, something.
Yes.
There's
Right.
one on either side of
So
the
they have
Shannon
Dune
on the
Ridge,
south.
yeah.
Right, sir.
Yeah,
They may have more than 10 condominiums.
uh-huh. And then
But-
the other condominiums.
What's
on
the
other
place
side.
beside Dune Ridge?
Wrightsville Dunes.
Right,
Wrightsville Dunes.
yeah.
Uh-huh. It's not Dunes Ridge, it's Wrightsville.
Well, there's
Yeah.
Wrightsville Dune, there's Dune Ridge, and
There's
then
side
there's
by
Wrightsville
side.
Dunes.
It's side by side.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're both.
And then what's
So
the
they're
one
two very large complexes
What
there.
about
the Surf
Seagull?
Club and the Islander, the
Private
little
clubs.
pods,
Private clubs can do it automatically.
That's
Already.
Sea Oats.
theos.
Mhm.
Yes.
What about Seagull? Over by Johnny Mercer, then.
That probably.
Well, they're a hotel motel. I don't think they're,
Hotel, hotel.
uh,
Holiday.
Sorry, that was.
Not a-
You're too old.
My sparkling water's getting to me.
It stands right now, hotels can do it.
yeah, hotels, motels, private clubs.
Okay,
They-
already,
Mhm.
okay.
So Holiday Inn. and-
So what we're adding are condominiums.
Condominiums with 10 or more. And
Which is a
staff did
lot.
take another attempt at it to try to clean it up, to address concerns from the department heads and things like that.
We've had this come before us. My question, I'm trying to remember. If I'm renting a house on the ocean front and I want to go to a company, they can't come sit in front of that house and set my stuff up. I have to set it up myself.
Well, I think they can bring it to your house. The question is I'm sure there's a lot of that that's going on that we don't.
But
know.
technically, it's not supposed to be.
Right.
Okay.
And
But
who
they can bring
overs-
things to your house.
Yeah, who's supposed to oversee this? I mean, police department can't possibly
Police
be
can't do
running
it.
up down the beach.
Fire, and it's.
And the ocean
difficult.
rescue saving lives, they don't need to be.
So well, I guess we should let the applicant speak
Yes.
Yes.
first, but, anyway. Or,
Did you say they can bring it to your house?
Sure.
Okay.
They can bring it, but they they're not
Put it on
supposed
the
to set it up.
Yeah,
Okay.
but there are companies that there's a couple company, Shades does that,
They don't set it up.
Craig's, they
They
don't
drop it
set it
off.
up, they just drop it off.
Take it to the property.
At your house?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They were I believe that was the group that.
It was.
For us last night.
So the Islander can have that now.
Tony,
She's asking for that.
So a house can have someone drop equipment off.
The Islander can have them drop it off, but they can't set it up.
Same as a house.
Right.
Okay.
So they want to do basically what the surf club does and blockade runner and all that stuff. And then we have about 6 more places that can do the same.
Probably could do it.
seems like there's a bit of a disconnect between owning the equipment and having clients in your facility and negotiating a deal with them versus having another party come in and do that. So where's the responsibility for the equipment?
well, I will interject on that note of what because that is something that I was gonna speak to, like the surf club and the hotels have staff that monitor that equipment that goes out, the chairs and the umbrella, and they set it up and they bring it in.
And they are the owners of the.
And they are the
equipment.
owners of the equipment. And so that's, to me, is a huge difference,
Mhm.
is having someone on staff monitoring that stuff, making sure it's set up in the proper location and retrieving it when the people leave.
And put it, they stack them in those racks.
There also seems to be something that's not congruent. So your item 1, I'm sorry, I did too. I'm sorry, I lost my place on that. It's, the transaction is happening where and between whom is the question.
Typically,
And it's part of what we just.
Yeah.
it can't be on the beachfront, so it could be at the location, it could be online, things like that. It would have to be on the property of the
And
island.
so yet to be answered then is the issue of who's responsible for the equipment.
They just come up in the bag.
Robert?
When I was researching this text amendment last year, a different text amendment, you would make the reservations and payment is done online. Typically, from what I saw, there's no money collected at the residence. It's sort of like ordering pizza. Only the pizza guy comes back and picks up the box when you're done with it. Like that. So.
So, you know,
And Carol's here from the island.
Yeah. Okay. all right. And if you'll just come up and state your name and.
Madam Chair, members of the planning board, I'm Carol Ducetti. I'm the manager of the Islander. And I've appeared here before on this subject, and I know you've heard it before. Where this started, the Islander is comprised of 60 individually owned condominiums. I have an older ownership. Some of them have reached the point due to health, age restrictions, they're not able to set up their chairs and umbrellas. And I know that seems like a simple thing, but for a 90-year-old with Parkinson's, it's a big thing. So we've gone around, I've spoken with Tony as well as some of the aldermen. We were trying to come up with a solution that would allow the Islander to provide this service without opening it up to the general public, which I think is the main complaint that we've heard in the past. You don't want them taking up public parking or blocking beach accesses. What we're asking for is to hire one vendor that would use our private parking area, our private beach access, set up the equipment properly, and then pick it up at the end of the day. We don't want to block any emergency lanes. We're very cognizant of that. We would not be setting up any equipment except what's been reserved. And I think in our history, we've never had any more than 6 setups. So we're not talking about taking up the whole beach. If you look at the surf club, their beach is filled each weekend with chairs and umbrellas. Ours would not be. I'm happy to answer any other questions.
So, sorry, I was just gonna ask, like, so if, when your elderly folks are finished at the beach and they're out there for 2 hours, you said they come set it up and leave it for the day, but if they come in after 2 hours, does it get brought in? Who's bringing that in, or is it just stay out there?
Well, that would be between the owner and the vendor. I think in the past, they've set up specific time frames, like we may be out there from 10 to 2, or they may want to come and go during the day. Individuals that set up their own equipment do that as well, and I have no control over that.
Right. Okay.
Do you have a vendor in mind for this already? Have you?
We would like to use Take Care Beach Rentals. I know they've appeared before you before, and I think they have a contract with some of the local hotels to do that as well.
Do you know what contracts they have and what hotels?
Is it the Silver Gull?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. I'm not affiliated with Take Care Beach Rentals.
So the one problem that we talked about before was if a storm comes up, all that stuff blowing, there's nobody to bring it in.
And that's a valid concern. In the past, the vendor that we've used has had staff available to do that. I also have a limited on-site staff, so if they are not close enough, that's something that we would help out with as well.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be responsible. And you would not be able to say you were responsible for getting it in.
No, that would be their responsibility, yes.
To me, this is deja vu all over again. Does anybody else? I think I remember, and I could, because I am getting old, but I do remember saying something along the lines of when this came before us with Cape Fear before, and he used you guys as an example. Then didn't I ask why didn't y'all just, because y'all use as an example, and the same thing about an elderly couple or whatever. Didn't it come up something about why doesn't Islander just offer that service? So I guess my question is, why don't you guys offer their service automatically?
I would
Why do
love
you have to go
to,
to an outside vendor?
I would love to, but I do not have the staff for that. We do not have the on-site storage for equipment. It's not practical for us. We would need to contract that out. And I don't believe the current ordinance would even allow us to do that in these.
There's no room for storage. I think we've talked about it in the past. They just don't have any room for storage for outside storage and things, buildings and things like that.
Well, they could put a storage
Right.
building of some sort out there, because everybody else can on the property. I guess
Yeah, actually, we cannot,
we can't do any kind of storage building.
no, ma'am.
There's no
I can, but she can't.
There, I am in the CAMA setback.
Oh.
We can't put any storage area.
Out front, I mean.
In the parking lot?
Towards
the
we
street?
could. I can
We
understand. not on
need
the
that
open
for
side.
parking. We only have 1.5 spaces
Yeah.
per unit as it is. So, and if we were to make changes to the parking lot, we would then have to do landscaping changes and handicap spaces.
Okay, so if I'm staying there. Well, they rent their places, I know that. Why can I not just call the guy, if I can do that as a homeowner? Why can I not just do that from your place? Just call the guy and have him bring it to me?
Anyone can call and have equipment dropped off.
Right.
Where we have a need for my owners and membership is assistance with setting it up properly.
So the scenario is the same exact one we dealt with last time.
Scenario what?
It's the same scenario that we dealt with last time, which was about it being set up on the beach and it not being
Yes,
attended to
exactly.
necessarily.
Exactly.
There was that disconnect between when the equipment gets set up, when the people show up, and then when the people leave and the person comes to take it away.
But before it was all over the beach. And then it was anywhere on the beach, and then it narrowed down, they used Islander as an example.
Yeah.
And now they're just saying just the Islander.
No, there's 10.
That's
10.
Okay.
Condominiums of 10 or more, which I believe it's just the Islander, Station 1, Wrightsville Dunes, and Dune Ridge.
You were right.
The others are hotels, which are currently allowed to do that stuff.
Shell Island is privately owned. are they
Shell
not?
Island is privately owned. It's operated as a hotel.
What are the ones by Oceanic, Susan?
Surf Suites,
Surf Suites.
and that's operated.
What about the
Are
CO?
There are condos on the other side as well.
But they have storage space for them. They operate it themselves. They go out there, they set it up, they bring it in, just like Blockade Runner and everybody else, right?
I don't know.
I think there's issues with the hotels potentially of what they currently do. And I think
Well,
there's some testimony about that actually.
Yeah, the
Well,
police chief said that the chair delivery was congested and that even though the hotels said that they would be responsible, the people that work there for them are not always Johnny on the spot. They're just not always.
And it's like somebody just walking along.
When there's a
the public property, could just come and sit on it. There'd be nothing you could do about it.
Well, I think that argument could be made with anyone's furniture that's on the beach.
Right,
that's left
exactly.
I
unattended.
agree. I agree.
I mean, yeah, but that
we-
doesn't change the fact.
Right.
I mean, it's there.
So does anyone, I was gonna close
Yeah.
this portion
Okay.
and open the public portion for any other comments that people might have. And then we can discuss amongst ourselves. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to or for? Against, yeah, you come forward and just state your name and
Thank you.
not sure the proper way to address you, but I'm Nancy Fahey, the coordinator for the Sea Turtle Project here at Wrightsville. I know several of you and have met you over the years. It was not me that submitted the comments. It was one of my volunteers, but that's okay. She was aware of what's on the agenda. Over the years, when we talk about hotels, putting the furniture out on the beach, it is, even that can be problematic in respect to how much there is out there, what time. I would like to ask you to reconsider the time frame that they're allowed to set this stuff up, because we monitor the beach on foot, right? So we have about a 3/4 mile section of beach, each volunteer. Well, if we have a thunderstorm at 6 a.m., we may not get out there until 6:30 or 7. And if they're already out there setting up beach furniture, they could disturb signs and tracks of nesting sea turtles or even the nests. Frankly, and we had a near disaster happen in front of the blockade runner with that very thing. They, and I don't know if are they under a particular restriction as to what time the hotels can set up?
Tony would probably know that.
Should be been in the,
Yeah.
should have.
I heard them mention 7, which is,
You know, we're just now putting a time on this. and it
There
can
wasn't a
change.
time.
that's pushing it.
There was
because
not a time.
we may not be done with our monitoring by 7 o'clock. And we had a turtle come in and nest right in front of the blockade runner. This has been 2 years ago, and the staff was already out there setting up the furniture by the time my volunteer got there, and they had no idea what they were looking at. You know, and you could easily either obscure the tracks and the signs that we're looking for, or even damage or destroy nests, especially with an umbrella or a chair or something like that. So I definitely would like to request that we talk about the time frame, and be honest, leaving it out there till 8 is kind of pushing it, because turtles don't have a clock. And we like to say they nest at night, but there are cases when they don't. And we have had an increase of a particular species of turtle, Kent's Ridley. They're the most rare of all the sea turtles. We have had a dramatic increase of these turtles nesting in the state of North Carolina, and frankly, they're renegade. They nest at any time of the day or evening. And we've had nests as close as Figure 8 Island, Topsail Island, and Lake Utah Island have all had Kent's Ridley nests on them. I think 8 o'clock's a little too late to be leaving the furniture out there. Every year there are instances of sea turtles washing in deceased, trapped in debris that's washed off of beaches into the ocean, including chairs, umbrellas, the ropes off of canopies, canopy material or frames. I mean, all of these things pose a definite threat to our nesting sea turtle population. And, you know, of course, that's especially near and dear to me, but, you know, we often see beach furniture blown or carried away, or, you know, I've seen blockade runner furniture all the way down at Crystal Peter in the morning that someone's gotten hold of at night and carrying it. So, you know, these are all things I think we need to consider when we talk about increasing the number of beach furniture that we are putting out there and putting in a position of creating this kind of an obstacle. And, you know, of course, we all know the beach is eroded right now anyway. So there are times on certain sections of the beach when it's high tide, you don't even have room hardly for anyone to sit, let alone extra beach furniture. So I'd just like to point out those kinds of concerns that we have observed and that we, you know, have seen an increase in over the years. And I'm happy I've got a lot of photographs we've taken of this kind of thing on the beach stand, and I'm happy to share those. I didn't come prepared to do that tonight, but I'm always happy to share that kind of information if you would like for me to. We get a bird's eye view because we're out there really early in the morning before anyone else is there, and we see a lot of things that may escape, you know, our notice when we're out there and the beach is crowded. So.
Okay.
Any questions or anything?
Yeah.
What's your experience with, I guess, any rental equipment, so to speak, that's out there versus the individual who brings their stuff out? I assume takes it home or leaves it because it broke. Should we see a lot of that stuff piled up? But, you know, any experiences with these rental companies or with any of the hotels?
Well, the hotels, I'm just gonna, you know, say specifically over the years, the blockade runner, and I have got photographs of how that whole situation has expanded over the years from 2 stacks of chairs to now we have 5 big stacks of chairs. They have built umbrella stands out there that are even maybe considered permanent structures. I don't know, but they're out of 4x4 posts. They've got 3 or 4 of those. They've got big storage boxes out there. All of these things prohibit the turtles from reaching the dune system, which is what we ultimately want them to do for the safety of the nest. But it also does create sometimes an obstacle to run into this kind of thing and they'll leave without nesting, or an entanglement danger, you know, that they could crawl away dragging a chair behind them. And I don't honestly know what's rental versus what's
I was gonna say.
someone's brought out there, but I know specifically with the blockade runner, we've really seen an increase in the amount of beach furniture out there and how it's.
I guess asked a slightly different way, are there other examples of where you see equipment not being removed from the beach but left
Occasionally,
semi-stored?
we'll see stuff left out there. Otherwise, I don't generally see a problem anywhere else. We do occasionally see things, and then, you know, in front of the Holiday Inn, sometimes we'll see stuff left, but they've gotten better, I think, about, they send staff out there to monitor and double check, make sure everything got brought back in and stored.
In the time window, what is it you would recommend for the time window of putting up and taking down?
I would prefer to see items out there no earlier than 8 AM. I mean, I think we'd be okay with 8 AM. And then I'd like to see everything off the beach no later than 7. Honestly.
Well, Nancy, the blockade runner has grown.
I'm sorry.
The program for the blockade runner has grown. I walk on the beach a lot and I know it. And at first I didn't even notice the chairs sitting out there. Maybe they weren't even stored out there.
Right.
And then there was a stack and then there was 2 stacks. And now it's a big area right at the foot of their walkway.
Yeah. The whole front side of the dune
It
is.
has. Yeah.
How is that allowed, Tony,
So that
to
they
be in
don't
front
have
of
to-
the dune?
Yeah.
No, but like legally,
How is that?
are you allowed to leave stuff?
We've had complaints and we've addressed it with the blockade runner,
Uh-huh.
new ownership now. And maybe we could readdress it with the new owners.
Well, it needs to be addressed for the new owners,
Right.
for sure. A lot of things need to be addressed with it.
One thing about the time change, remember this is surfing lessons too.
Yeah.
So if we change that to 8, that could cause some issues there. I don't know if we could separate the 2. Right now, it is 7 AM to 8 PM on the application. The question is do we separate the 2 for surfing and things like that, leave it at 7 and 8 for surfing and chairs and umbrellas, change it, that's up to you. If you want to change that.
That's confusing. It makes it more confusing.
Well,
Yeah, to have different.
but you know, surfers think.
Yeah, they go.
Yeah, that's different.
But it's a different issue with them. It's not equipment.
Right.
It's a certain place.
They're not leaving equipment on the beach.
They
It's
would
not
have to walk on
equipment
the
and-
trend. They're not going to put an umbrella in it.
They're conflict section rescues.
Mhm.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for that. And see, Kathy.
Yeah, absolutely. Would anyone else like to speak? Oh, please.
I didn't know Nancy was talking, and I'm Nancy Fay, Freddie, 11691. And I would go as far as to say it doesn't need to be out there till 8:30 in the morning, not 8 o'clock. I'm a turtle walker. And some days if it's stormy, you don't get there that early, you gotta wait. So 8:30 in the morning and 8 at night, too late, 7 at night. And Tony, I think we have to separate them because the surfers are not gonna do the same sorts of things as putting the furniture, particularly the umbrella stakes out there. And we need to address the problem at the blockade runner, whether it's here or at the state level. In general, I don't need to repeat what Nancy said, so I will. Public versus private. I heard 6 sets set up. That begins to look like to me that they're just putting nice things out there if I want to come along and enjoy, which I can. But 6 seems a lot for the people that they have there. It's certainly not regular.
I don't understand it. I couldn't understand that. Nancy, would you come back and tell us what the 6 is that you're talking about? What is this?
The 6 condominium complexes.
Yeah.
She thinks it's too many.
Too many, yeah, to
Mhm.
be left until their folks would like to come out there. I don't think it
Okay,
ain't
so you were
gonna be
talking about the
more than 6
number
of
of
those
condominiums that would have more than
different
10
folks.
units. Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Just
Okay,
like one
that's
thing,
okay.
it concerns me, if this is gonna apply to Wrightsville Dunes and Dune Ridge, those are huge
Mhm.
complexes.
A lot of
We're
beach.
talking about
A lot of
a
different people.
lot of beach furniture on that.
Right.
I just wanna add that.
Yeah, you can. Yes.
I just want to add that, you know, the Islander would certainly be willing, I mean, we are not opposed to changing the times. We have no desire to disrupt hurdles or anything like that. We would also be required to get a permit. We would have to follow the rules or we would lose that permit. So, as far as the other 3 properties, I don't even know that they're interested in using this service. This condominiums of 10 or more basically came about with a conversation I had with an alderman, and he suggested maybe putting that number on there to decrease the number of properties that would be allowed to do this service.
Okay, thank you.
Did you say you had 60 condos?
We have 60 condos in our building, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, thank you for letting me speak. I'm Melanie Addis. I'm the president of the HOA at the Islander, and I have used the vendor that we're talking about using. And so I just wanted to let you know, when you talk about the storms and things like that, anytime I have used the vendor before, I have gotten a text message or a call that says, I'm watching the radar, a storm is coming, I'll be there within this amount of time. I've used them numerous times and never had a problem. The one benefit I want to tell you about having a vendor for some of our elderly people, even myself putting up a tent, I can tell my 3 kids to go down and put a tent up. And I don't know what it's going to look like, but I can tell you that the vendor, that tent is not going anywhere unless we have a major storm, and they're going to come and take it. But I mean, we've seen umbrellas flying down the beach, but the ones that they put up are extremely secure. And we are cognizant of the fact of the turtles and the time frame. None of that bothers us. We just really want to help the people that own a condominium be able to actually use the beach. If you want to know the truth, we probably had 2 to 3 people that have stopped going to the beach because we could not have a vendor put their chairs out. A lot of the owners will help each other out, but we certainly just don't have the staff, you know, to do that. So I would appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. All right, if there's no one else, then we'll close the public portion of this, and then we'll move on to discussion amongst the board. So I have to say, I guess I can start. I have concerns with the number of residences that is considered in this, mainly not only the Islander in Station 1, but also Dune Ridge and Wrightsville Dunes. That is a lot of property, a lot of
Station.
land.
Station 1, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But also I am looking at the staff comments, and I just, with Shannon, who rides this beach 24/7. I literally think he works 7 days a week. Because I see him and talk to him. He has huge concerns with the erosion that we've had. And
So does Ocean Rescue.
and Ocean Rescue as well. And so maybe something that should be postponed until we can get, you know, the beach renourishment under control, because there's literally no space out there for all of this equipment. And then coupled with possibly needing Ocean Rescue to come up and down the beach then, which they commented as well, it's already a concern and an issue.
And then Chief Squires
And Chief Squires.
had some concerns.
Mhm. So that's, just coming from what I've gathered from all of this. Does anyone else have anything they want to say?
I think when we looked at this before and looking at, we always have to consider what the fire chief says. What we have to, what Ocean Rescue has to say, especially Ocean Rescue, which kind of includes Shannon. Whenever they have concerns about something, that always makes me concerned. And I think Shannon nailed it in his last sentence, was my opinion, is that we wait until the beach renourishment is completed and then maybe come back and visit this again. I just don't think there's room on the beach right now. There's not even room on the beach for what's already these private hotels. And if the 6 other places or whatever, I wrote that down, and if they all decide that they want to start doing the same thing, there's just no room, not right now. I think our beaches aren't that wide to begin with, and now we have, this erosion, and I think it's something that we may want to consider just looking into it maybe again once the beach renourishment has been done.
Leanne, I'm also concerned because what's going on right now is not working.
Mhm.
So the program with the umbrellas and the chairs for the hotels, we're getting complaints.
Yeah, we already
from
got
The
problems.
people that work.
That's
for
what
the
you're
beach.
saying.
Yeah, we're getting complaints from them. Ocean Rescue, the police, Shannon.
And I think it
So
needs to
this
be
needs to
addressed.
be-
It
Yeah,
needs to
we
be
need
addressed.
to work on getting that program working.
Mhm, I
Yeah, it
agree.
needs to be specifically changed.
I agree. But I
And
know
if- and
there's.
if we can't do that, then we can't increase it.
Exactly. I agree 100%.
I'd like to find a solution to this, but it would seem that with the condition of the beach, if now's not the time to even implement
Mm.
the solution because it's so,
That's my
so
point.
small. But I do think there's a number of things here that this has to happen very differently than it's happened up till now. I mean, the issue with blockade runners has been a long-standing issue. Nothing new, and it's only gotten worse, and it's like the town isn't going that extra
And
distance.
that
to
problem
change
is
that.
causing a problem for
Well,
everyone.
It certainly puts a bad taste in your
Yeah.
mouth for how it could get to.
It needs to be.
But we've got several, interested parties here. And of course, the people who really want the service, and he says, describe people who really need the service versus just want it. They want to have the beach, but they can't get their equipment there. So I'd like us to find a solution, but I would always yield to Shannon in my dealings with him. He's a pretty reasonable person, and he puts a lot of miles on the beach.
Yeah,
He
it
sees
does.
it.
He really does.
Nothing's really changed about this from the
No.
last time,
Mhm.
but the need hasn't gone away.
Mhm.
The
And-
want certainly hasn't gone away, but the need hasn't either.
And I'm like you, I think there's certainly a solution. We need to come up with something, but I don't think now's the time.
I would suggest, or I have a question actually for Tony. I guess, there's a business permit required.
No, well, we don't have, permit is required, we don't require a privilege license, but a permit is required. And enforcement is one way to do it. The blockade runner does have a permit and the surf club has permits. And there's like 10 or 12 surf camps. But I think enforcement on the individuals who are not complying, or either we don't renew their license, would be one way to. And we've talked to the blockade runner about it, but we've got new ownership now, maybe the time.
Just
now is the
start
time.
out with them
Yeah.
being stern and be sure they do what they're supposed to do.
So, but I think you referenced that you need to get a permit.
Correct.
What about the vendor? What do they need to get?
Well, no, I think it would be up to if the Islander was that, they could put them as a subcontractor or whatever.
So there's at least in that process, there's a point at which they can be given, rules of engagement of doing this business.
Right.
The when and the why and dealing with the storm and all that kind of stuff, you know, with everything you heard about, get a text message as a storm coming. But if this proliferates across these larger base, there's no way that contractor, even two or three more of contractors could handle the volume that they could potentially have. And that's not really then a solution. That's probably down the road before it, you know, catches on like wildfire, but I'm just saying that there's a number of things that beyond what's been drafted that I think really have to get put into place, including the process of accountability, because that's the one thing that's been holding us up on this is who's accountable for when the storm comes up.
Right.
And now additionally, with much more input, that they're not driving stakes into turtle nests or obliterating, you know, tracks and things like that. Or leaving equipment on the beach.
I was gonna say, I hope you understand that this isn't reflective of the Islander. There's other properties that this involves. So what you do doesn't mean that's what Dune Ridge is gonna do, and that's what another one, as well as you might have success with Cape Fear Rentals, but if we open this up, it could be any rental company that another property hires out. So our comments aren't reflected directly at you. It's just problems that we've
We have to think
seen.
about the whole beach.
Yeah, the whole beach.
So,
And my thing to Tony is, can we come up with a handicap use of the beach? That if there's truly people that have handicap, to make that.
You know, I think we tried that in other areas, it didn't work so well,
Okay.
so,
There's no one to oversee it, is it?
right.
mm-mm.
So I thought we did a pretty good job at, you know, reducing this thing down, and I think we did, we made
There's
a lot of.
of properties
It's a
though,
lot of
and
property,
a lot of beach chairs and
a
umbrellas.
lot of beachfront, yeah. So,
All the things we probably don't want to see more umbrellas and tents.
What's umbrellas and chairs is the limitation, correct? Yeah.
Correct.
What's the definition of an umbrella these days?
I don't know,
They
that's
come with flaps, they come with
That's
zippers, they come with
for debate,
flooring,
so.
it still sets up like an umbrella, so. And all of them have increased windage to them, by the way, so, and then there's.
That's a
big
Shibuya
blue
meeting,
thing,
the big
yeah,
Shibuya.
so
We need to vote.
you know,
Right.
I think it has to get specific at some
Yeah.
point too.
But voting on this, I don't think we're gonna do that tonight. So, I think we need to move forward, with this text amendment and would somebody like to make a motion for or against, or?
Well, I think are we in agreement that this is something that we want to have come back to us after the beach renouncement, so it.
Well, they can reapply. anytime,
Reapply,
yeah.
so then we would make
So-
the motion would be to not move forward or to.
Do you
not
want to make a
approve.
motion for it?
I mean, are we ready?
Yeah.
For that?
I think so. Are we
Mhm.
ready?
Okay, then I'll make a motion that I have my glasses. I'll make a motion that at this time we do not approve the text amendment to 155.7.15 to amend to read as to occupants of units of condos with 10 or more units. Is that right? That's it.
Yeah, the petition,
The
the
petition
request of.
The request.
Ocean related businesses be amended.
amended to read as two occupants of units at the condominiums with 10 or more units.
That could also change, the staff's comments
Mhm.
later if the beach was in better shape.
Right.
Yes.
But the fact that the staff is so opposed to it for safety reasons,
Mhm.
it wouldn't make sense. Nobody understands any better than I do the handicap factor.
Mhm.
I can't get down that thing and go to the beach anymore. But I also know that it's a safety, big time safety. And for them to be able to get through there now is almost impossible. And to know that that equipment is just gonna sit out there for endless hours without somebody really to care for it is dangerous.
Are we giving Tony the speaking points for the board?
Well,
Because this can still go to the board of Alderman, can't it?
Well, I think it's up to the applicant, if she wants to
Mhm.
move forward with it. She can, after the meeting, I think they'll probably decide if they want to move forward to the Board of Aldermen
mhm.
or just hold off, I think.
Well, they'll have the staff comments.
Yeah, staff comments, it's been denied. So.
Right,
But we
and,
haven't
We have
done
to
that
vote.
yet,
And
because we've only.
right, she's just made a motion, we haven't
Okay.
voted on it yet, so does anyone want to second Leanne's?
Should we
I
add to it?
I just wanted to make one comment, and that is that if I don't feel what's written here as the changes
Mhm.
definitive enough.
Right.
And I wouldn't want the Board of Aldermen to just, okay, that's fine, you know, we got sand here, let's go with
Well,
it.
that's what I was just getting ready to say. We could make this motion, I can go back and change this motion and that Tony know that we tell the Board of Aldermen that we feel like once the beach renourishment has been done, we could revisit this and work on these some changes.
I don't know that,
Yeah,
I
mine,
agree
for
that the
example.
beach renourishment, in my opinion, is
The
gonna
end
make a
all be all.
difference.
That's not the end all be, but that's what I just said, then we can make some changes, like the time. Or more specific, or whatever.
But can't we just put in our,
I don't
like,
think
motion that we
decline it.
we
Yeah.
decline it and we
Yes.
request that the Board of Aldermen look at our reasons for
Yes.
doing so.
Yes.
I mean, it's in the minutes,
Okay.
so,
Or it may not even go at all.
Right, right.
But if it does, all right, we do it over.
yes, okay.
Okay. So I make a motion that we do not approve the ocean-related business as amended as read as, or to occupants of units of condominiums with 10 units or more, and that the Board of Aldermen go back and read our minutes as to our reasoning why.
Anyone want a second?
1 second now.
Susan seconds, all in favor? That's unanimous, Robert.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Okay. All right, so moving on to old business. Does anyone have any old business?
Yes,
Well,
I had something.
Yeah, I did too.
The ad hoc committee, you know, that met,
Mhm.
they're actually going to, present it to the board, I think this Thursday night. And the feeling is that the board will refer it to the planning board,
Mm.
but there are lots of changes in it. It's not just one thing, I think that we look at 4 or 5 different things, right, Neil? So it'll be we're not just looking at the one item.
Mhm.
There'll be 4 or 5 different items, but it'll come back to the planning board.
So when that means we'll see it in April or March?
It's probably going to be, with the direction, depends on the direction this Thursday night. But it sounds like the direction, maybe it would go to the town attorney, he would draft a text,
Right.
draft an ordinance form, then it would come back.
So
to
it
the
might be
planning board.
another
So it
month.
won't
That'll take a
be-
while.
It
Yeah,
won't be, February or March.
Yeah.
okay, all right,
What did I say, March?
okay.
Kicking the can down the
I know, I can't.
Any other business?
I did, yes.
Okay.
We discussed, I brought up last time about the motorized bicycles on the beach.
That's a.
And we discussed that, and I did send Chief Squires an email that day and said that the planning board had discussed it and wanted to know more detail about what was allowed and
Mhm.
what was not. And he answered me right away with the ordinance that says that bicycles are allowed on the beach in off season. And
Motorized
I
are
was
not
gonna-
allowed at all.
I was gonna forward it to you, but guess what? I could not get my message from the email to forward now, so I'm sorry. But he did call me and we talked about it. He said, if you want to talk, we'll talk on the phone. And I agreed that I really wanted to do that. So you may have bicycles on the beach at off season. And my memory of off season maybe was October to April. However, except motorized
Not at all.
vehicles. So it says you may have bicycles except no motorized
Right.
vehicles. So I did talk to him about that and how I wanted to know how I could look at them and tell. How can I tell the difference? And he said that it was difficult, but that there would be some unit on the bike that
Mhm.
would have a motor, and that they're all driven. The motorized part is driven from their hands.
You can
So
tell
there's a
because they're
problem
going
there.
fast and they're not moving their feet.
What's the man know?
This is how you tell. When they come back buzzing.
Well,
down.
Susan, the center of the bike is significantly
Yeah,
larger.
It's like has.
Sometimes
big
in the
round
back
cylinders.
too.
Yeah, I saw one under the sea. I walked the beach,
Yeah.
like
You think
3
some
or
of
4
them
times a
pedal to
week.
make it
The
look like?
difference is when you see me going down the beach and I'm huffing and puffing because I'm actually
Cause you
pedaling.
can hardly
I
manage.
can
in
hardly
that
get it,
sand.
and then they're zip by you when you're sitting there
Yes.
sweating like, you know what? They come passing by you,
Uh-huh.
talking on their phone, 35 miles an
Yes.
hour, not pedaling, that's how you tell the
I am
difference.
not feeling
So, man,
strongly that anyone is
They're
monitoring this.
They're on the sidewalks too.
I can,
You know, I was told that it was very difficult to see whether or not they,
I can quote you the ordinance, because I have it right here. I had sent it to you, I think, at some point. So anyway. it's-
and he did too, he
Yeah,
sent it to me.
bicycles excluded. Those equipped with a throttle are permitted on the beach strand at any time between October first and April first. Between April first and October first, so that's now in season, so to speak. They're prohibited on the beach strand between the hours of 9 AM and 6 PM. So in season, you'll see them in the morning and, you
At
know.
night.
But not motorized.
No motorized.
Yes, they
Yeah.
can be throttled. Yes.
No, he said they could not.
Mm-mm.
Read it again.
I think
It's
that's
like
an
a
old-
double net.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
You
It's a
cannot
double
have an
negative
electrified-
in that ordinance.
Please have an electrified on the beach.
There is a double.
Seriously?
Here, you know.
Cannot have an electric bike on the beach
Except-
any day of the year. No, and it is for fact, you cannot.
So I have another issue.
Okay.
That was done.
So, I would suggest if you all are interested in, encouraging the police department that you get in touch with Chief Squires and, tell him how important it is to oversee.
There's a chat with the chief.
So let's chat with the chief and we go call him.
We just need to make sure that he understands
17.
where we are.
17.
I've talked to him.
Of this month?
100 times.
Yes. Next week.
It goes right. And I've asked, could it be something as simple as, I'm not asking the police to get out of their car and say to a 13-year-old, don't ride your bike or your electric bike. I'm not asking, just get on the loudspeaker as you're riding by. All you gotta do is say, you can say it nicely. Please understand bikes are prohibited from the sidewalk.
I am seeing them and they're not, I'm not seeing reckless behavior, but I am seeing them, they are,
That's it.
they are.
I have seen reckless behavior,
Mhm.
you know, I mean.
Just
as
coming
the
up behind
police-
me, that's reckless.
Yeah.
I feel in danger.
I see what you're saying, and I've been battling this for 2 years with the police department, and I just don't even say anything anymore.
Well, thanks for your update, though,
Okay.
and thanks for emailing.
Awesome.
When did you say 16?
17th is a Tuesday.
Please, is that the meet the chief
Yeah,
So that'd be a week.
yeah, we called it something different, but.
week from today?
Is there
Yeah.
any other business?
Yeah, I wanted to, Tony, a question for you.
Just today.
At the Board of Adjustment meeting. You know, they turned down the request to allow the spiral staircase on the beach in the setback. Can you
We're
just say-
waiting on an order from the town attorney.
That's not planned.
We have to have an order from the town attorney. And then it gives them so many days to appeal it. So that's what we're waiting on.
I'm sorry, I don't think I know about this.
Well, it's not related to the planning. board,
Yeah,
it's the
that's
Board of
okay.
Adjustment, so, yeah,
Okay.
all right, is there, no, it's fine. Is there any other business that anyone would like to discuss?
Just that we didn't have the attendance part, it's the old one.
Yeah, I already
We
mentioned
addressed
that, yeah.
We addressed that before you got here.
You usually lead us here.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Yes,
I second.
all in favor?
Goodbye.
Oh,